Hello, this is Tytti Vanhala, an associate trainer for Art2Ride, and this is Pöly's journal number 23. I've decided to do a voiceover on this, and this is all about side rein works with Pöly. And here we are starting in the beginning of May with some footage on it. We have lunged him with side reins lots before this as well, and we started doing it more about a year ago after Will's clinic here last year May, when he was introducing more of the side rein work for Pöly. And until then I think we had lunged with side reins that were too long basically for him, so that they were just flapping, and there was no he could stretch all the way down without any resistance, but again he wouldn't be able to kind of get a proper contact with the side reins either. So that was the first day gone already, and this was a couple days later, and you can see how he's quite nice and energetic, and is looking pretty good. At least that's what we think. He's moving on. He's not curling at all. The side reins are very good length for him. They could be perhaps moved on higher as well soon enough, but I thought we were just going to establish him on this length and this level of side reins, so that the height on the rings, that is. So they are now in the, I think in the last side ring on the surcingle there, and they're giving him more work. They're keeping him more straight with his neck. As you can see there, he has now a good contact on the outside rein, even when we are lunging. And as you can see, he's pretty happy with them. He's not fighting against them. He's not curling like he did in the beginning. If you watch his journal from the clinic footage, you can see how he was then. He was still finding it a bit difficult, and he was curling on the initial length, which was pretty similar to this length that you see here, but he wasn't as strong then. I mean, now it's been a year of training again, so he is a lot stronger than back then, and you can definitely see it with him. He's very balanced. He's stepping under really well, and he's really working well over his back here. And even if he lifts his head higher, you can see that his going doesn't change. He's not dropping his back, except if he's lifting his head a little bit too high, as he does occasionally with every session, that he lifts it a little bit too high, and then you can see how he loses it. But you can see here as well that he does not necessarily need to go all the way down with his nose anymore. It's enough if he goes about knee height, and if he's a bit higher, it doesn't matter. He's still working through very well. But if he lifts it very high, then of course he loses his back. But he's coming on. Like here, this is hollow, this canter in the beginning, but then he starts to work on it better. Like there, he's lowering his head, and you can see the difference in his going. So that's really pretty nice. Obviously stretching in canter is really very, very hard work, and you shouldn't really expect a horse to be able to do that until he's pretty strong over the top line. You can see how well he copes with the side reins and how happily he's working. So with Pöly, the side reins have made really a big difference in the lunging, because he he very often, especially on this left rein, he would quite happily kind of twist his head to the inside. So he would kind of overbend his neck very easily on this side. And you can see now that he's nice and straight on the neck. So there's no overbend because he has that outside rein that controls it. And this has obviously been a lot of work from us. And look at that, that's a nice canter. And there you can see how difficult that stretch in the canter is, in fact. That he almost broke off the canter there when he started to stretch more, and it became more difficult for him. But still he managed to continue the canter. He didn't stumble or anything at all. So that shows how strong he is and how well he is stepping under himself already. Well, this is 3 years and some months of, no, pretty much 3 years of training at this point with him, and only Art2Ride, so nothing else mixed in, just this work. So I'm really happy how the side rein work is progressing and has helped a lot on keeping his neck straight and helping us from to train him without him overbending his neck or him escaping through his shoulder when you lunge. So that's been really good. And here you can see, like, he can lift his nose maybe up to the chest height and he still works okay, but if his nose goes higher, then he starts to lose his back, lose his engagement through his top line. Say that better. So that's really nice. And when he's really stretching lower, you can see how much more bounce he gets in his step. So he's engaging extra well then over his back. And you can see how big a circle we're still giving him. And especially with side rein work, which is going to be more difficult work, especially at this level. You kind of want to give him a respite from the harder work by giving him a bigger circle, at least every now and then. And also depending on the day. Sometimes he feels really good and you can ask far more harder work from him. Even with the side reins you can ask for smaller circle work far more, and other days he's a little bit stiffer or just in general less energetic, and then you would just keep it a little bit easier and keep the circles bigger when you lunge and do very minimal small circle work. But he's quite happy. We also ask him these days to come up to the working frame more on the lunge. Once you've done a lot of lunging this way, you kind of learn how to fine-tune your aids with the lunge line and your whip hand in such a way that you can ask for the horse to come into a working frame even on the lunge. It's just a very fine-tuned aids that you ask for the higher head carriage. And here you will then see a whole session. So I haven't clipped anything away from these. The previous sessions were filmed by my mobile, so that's why they were not full sessions. And anyway, if I give you all full sessions, then this will be hours of watching, so that might become a bit boring at some point. But here's me working Pöly in the middle of May. I still have my leg injury to kind of work with, and you can see I'm not walking totally normally here either, and I need to keep Pöly a little bit further away from me So here what I'm concentrating on is keeping him going and even in walk, and you can see what wonderful walk he has here. So I'm pretty chuffed how he's walking, even though I'm not very close to him, because walk has been the most difficult gait. Well, canter has been also difficult, but to get walk like this with good activity, him stretching enough and really wonderful big steps from behind, that has been really, really difficult to get when I'm further away from him. I can get it if I walk close to him, but usually this doesn't happen usually. So I was well chuffed that day, because I could not walk very fast, and I still cannot run these days. So this is the first days of July that I'm doing this voiceover. So even now I can't still run. So I've hurt my ankle. I twisted it very, very badly in the beginning of April, and I fell off Pöly because I could not. Well, I twisted my ankle and I fell off him because of that. And so I've been rehabbing myself during these couple of months now. And so that's why I haven't been able to ride for very much at all since the accident. And yeah, you can see here I'm probably lunging for the first times since the accident, because it's been very for the first 2 weeks I was just walking with crutches basically, because I couldn't put any weight on my right leg at all. So it was that bad a twist. So, but it's coming along okay now, and I can ride already without lunge line as well. So that's why you can see me here. I'm really in the end of the lunge line myself, because yeah, I can't keep up with him if I'm any closer. So that's why I'm so far away. Unusual for me. And as you can see, my whip is not going to reach him at this distance either. But I'm managing, and he's really working really well for me here. It's a very, very nice trot, and see that's a beautiful beautiful glimpse of working trot there on the lunge line. He's really stretching his neck forward and really using his top line to go forward. So that's a little bit too far. When he pokes his nose out like that, if you could see that there, that's not optimal. So that was a little bit too high head, and the nose poking out, but that's great. That's really, really nice. So that's what I want also on the lunge, so that's really working him in a higher level on the lunge line with the side reins. And there, the side reins are giving him the something to work into as well. So here I'm asking for canter, and that is working really nicely as well. I'm really pleased with that. And I'm just needing to walk a little bit faster. That's a beautiful canter. Yeah, sorry about the solo shot not following the horse but me. So I really need to start putting the tag into the surcingle, so that the camera follows Pöly and not me. So yeah, but that was a great canter, and look at that trot. It's just beautiful, and you can see how well the side reins are fitting him with the length. So they are not restricting him. He can still stretch pretty much down, not all the way to the ground, but he does not have to stretch all the way to the ground anymore because he is that strong. but he can also come up into a working frame with them. So they, at the same time, they give him something to work into, but they are not restricting him. So that's the perfect length for him. And I also think that yeah, the level where they are at the surcingle is pretty good for his normal workout. I think if we should want to make it a little bit more difficult for him, we would lift it higher on a higher ring on the surcingle. So I think we could do that like every now and then, but I think we need to kind of introduce that very gradually and not do it always at the higher level. And so moving the side rein attachment up on the rings just gives the horse more of a feeling of working towards more established working frame, as I say. Another really nice canter. I'm really loving my workout here. Yeah. Yeah, I love that canter. Obviously he could stretch a bit. There he stretched, yeah, nice. I was gonna say he could stretch a little bit more, but as I said earlier, it's really extremely hard work for the horse to canter and stretch somewhere like the knees or below knees. It's very hard work, and they have to really use their core and step really well under. So that's something that comes from years of training correctly. So not expecting that to happen in a hurry. But yeah, so the higher the side reins are attached on the surcingle, the harder the work is for the horse, and the more you will be working on the working frame. You still should not restrict the horse with the side reins, even if they are attached higher on the surcingle. It just means that they get slightly more restricted, but it is not full restriction as you would normally see side reins used. So they can still stretch medium to medium stretch, but still work more into the working frame. But as you can see here, he's happily lifting his head higher and working harder. And you can see well how his lower neck is relaxed, and that the neck is open, and he's stretching forward into the bit. And there's no forcing, he's doing it himself. I'm just asking him to move on and just keep up the good work, basically. And he's just obliging because it's easy. He's been trained for 3 years and he has enough muscle to do this, so he's doing it. So this is what we sometimes say, that things will come easy when the horse is ready. When the horse has enough muscle, these things become really easy and they come as if themselves. It's really hard to understand where you are when you're starting this process, because you just don't, you try it and it doesn't work, and you don't understand necessarily why it doesn't work. And we keep on telling people, like, just wait and train more and it will come. And I've been just finding out that yes, it will come eventually, but it means a lot of training and no setbacks, and you need to also consider everything else around the horse, basically. You have to think of the saddle, you have to think of if you have any trouble with the bit or the bridle or the environment or the shoeing or or the food. Sometimes the food makes a difference, or supplements. Some horses need them, others don't. it's very individual, but you kind of sometimes have to be a detective to figure out what is going to help your horse, and if there's something wrong, what is wrong, and so on. Yeah. So, for example, with Pöly, he sometimes this spring he has looked really a little bit uneven, and we have been a little bit concerned, like what is it? Is it somehow something in his muscle? Is he tight somewhere? Has he hurt himself a little bit, or what is it? But when the rain came, it was obvious what it was. He was just sensitive to the hard ground. So with Pöly, he is very sensitive on his feet if the ground is getting hard. So he's a horse that always needs shoes on, and when the ground is getting like this very dry and starting to get dusty, it also means that the school surface is getting more compacted and harder, and then we notice that he gets a little bit iffy and has a little bit shortened stride and is not as comfortable on his feet, and that's just and then it just disappears when it rains and the ground is softer, and that's always a relief that it's nothing really terribly wrong with him. It is just the environmental issue, so to say, and then you just have to kind of remember that and adjust your training to it, that you know that today the ground is really hard, so maybe do a little bit less harder work, or go out on a hack or whatever, or give him a day off if it's really not going to be good anyway. So here you see that I still put the lunge line over his poll here. It's not totally necessary when you have side reins on, because you get that control of the bit from both sides of the horse with the side reins, but I've just put it over because I'm not very good on my feet, and yeah, we just have had it like that for quite a while now, so it's just a habit. But we could easily put it just on the inside bit ring now, because he's fine, and he indeed has the side reins which control the bit, that it stays in the middle of his mouth and won't get pulled through his mouth. So I don't know if you probably may have noticed that I have taken out the donuts from the side reins. These side reins at least had those rubber donuts in the middle, so that they which make them more flexible. You see here the empty rings that were left when I took them out. I took them out because he got extremely disturbed by their weight. So when we had the donuts on and we went on trot or canter, they just were wisping his mouth basically every step, and you could tell that he couldn't quite concentrate on the work with them going about like that, dangling all the time, and kind of jabbing his mouth quite regularly all the time. So I thought, well, why are they there? They are there to kind of give a little bit flexibility to the side reins. But do I need them? No, because I'm not tightening the side reins as people, shall we say, normally would do. So there is no consistent pressure on the mouth. They are they're fairly loose when you consider side rein work. Well, not when you consider Art2Ride side rein work, but otherwise. So I decided we don't really need them. So I took them off, and he has been a lot better without the donuts. So it has definitely been annoying to him to have that donut dangling about all the time, especially in the canter, because the side reins tend to still kind of whisk a little bit when he canters. But now they don't jab him in the mouth that much at all, since the reins themselves are pretty light. So that's good. Yeah, so here I'm starting on the left. Should maybe talk about this, my lunging work as well at some time. But yeah, his left rein has always been the more difficult one, because his right side of him is a bit stiffer in general. So he has always had a bit more difficulty in this rein. But this looks also pretty good. And he looks nice and bouncy, and it was a really nice day. He was very willing to work, and I was happy I could lunge him finally. I could do some training. DJ has been training otherwise with him when I have been not able to move. I think I was about 1.5 weeks at home. I couldn't take but few steps outdoors, and so that was very boring. So I was very happy the first day I could come along to the yard and just hobble around with my crutches at least. But everybody's been really great here and helped out when I haven't been able to do things as I normally do. So you can see this canter is a little bit stiffer than on the right side, but there you can see how he's trying for me. He's really trying. He's a little bit stiff on the side, so he's wanting to look outside to make it easier for him. He's trying his hardest for me that day. So that's really nice stuff there. So yeah, this is how we have kept him going since I was not able to ride him efficiently at all, obviously, since the whole of my right side was pretty weak, and my ankle obviously couldn't take any pressure. So yeah, so here I'm doing a little bit of smaller circle work, just to ask him to kind of stretch his right side of his body a little bit more. Ask him to step under a bit more. And he's trying, but you can see that there was ever so slight hint of some kind of irregularity when it gets too hard for him there with the smaller circle work. And you can see how dry the school is. It's starting to dust a little bit, so it means that it is getting quite hard by then, so he would start feeling that as well. Especially with the harder work, he would react to it quicker. He's going pretty nice here. And I think I'm probably asking him for another canter. Yeah, just asking. There we go. Yeah, that's a lot better. Better canter. So I just wanted to supple him up with a couple of rounds in the small circle, and then I wanted to see if that helped the canter. And look at that, that's beautiful. That's a kind of nice stretch on the canter as well. And there was a really nice transition there where he just continued with the position. It didn't come up or with the head or anything, so that's lovely. Yeah, and I think I'm just collecting the lunge line again. So I'm just doing ever so slightly smaller circle again here. Just see how he reacts, if he's more supple already. And he definitely is obliging a little bit easier, but you can see how much harder work it is for him that day. So that was it. He just gets slightly kind of stiff looking when it's for him, stiff for him, I should say. When it gets too hard, it gets difficult. But he's pretty nice and consistent with this going there with the kind of medium stretch to the knees, and just keep the rhythm, and nice activity. That's really nice. Nicely reaching forward, but not poking the nose out either, so he's really working on the bit from the hind legs all the way to the nose. And you can also see the belly, and so the whole core is working. Yeah, he certainly has become a quite a powerhouse. As DJ was saying, that he's a really a muscle horse these days. He hasn't DJ hasn't ridden very much the past couple of years, but now he has started to ride a bit more, and he's getting used to the new Pöly, so to say. That he has a lot more muscle, and it certainly feels different to ride then. So I'm just loving this work that day. He just worked really well for me. And the walk work is just beautiful. You wouldn't believe from where we started from. It's worked so well with him. Too bad you can't quite see the whole movement through the back because of the surcingle and the numna there, or the saddle cloth. You can't see it all happening under there, but you can imagine how well his muscles are working under there with that stride and activity. Yeah, and here I'm finishing. So that was that day, a full session, and very pleased with his work on these side reins. Okay, and then DJ working again, Pöly. I think we started in April, I think it was, with more of this side rein work since well, after my injury, obviously, and we started with maybe a hole or two longer side reins. and I'm not sure exactly when we shortened them just that 1 or 2 holes, but yeah, it may have been in May, so I'm not sure if these side reins are a little bit shorter now. But he seems to be coping. I think these side reins may be indeed a hole or so shorter, so that the work is getting a little bit harder, so he's not able to stretch as low as he could with slightly longer ones. Yeah, I think these are slightly, ever so slightly shorter reins now, so that makes it harder for him, obviously. And I think that's what he's doing here. He's kind of testing, like, how far can I go, and realizing that, oh, I can't go that low as I am used to. So he just has to get used to this. Obviously you don't shorten them very much more than this in general, and when you put them higher on the surcingle, you have to also adjust the length then, of course, because you don't want the horse to curl over, obviously. So you definitely don't want them too short, but you also don't want them too long, because then there's no use. Either way, there's no use of the side reins if they are too long or if they are too short. And I know from experience that it can be really hard to decide what length is good for your horse. That's the kind of trouble we had a little bit over a year ago with Bölu. Until then, Will worked with the side reins in the clinic with him, and then it became kind of clearer in my head, like what length is good for him, and that he can do it. That was also kind of an issue, that you kind of be a little bit careful on it, like you feel like if he curls a little bit, that he can't do it, and you're a little bit uncertain that is it okay to push him a little bit, and does he come out of the curl, or so on and so forth. And what I found with the clinic is that he can actually do it. So a bit over a year ago, he would have curled with this length of side reins. He would not have been able to work this well with this length of side reins, I have to say. So it really depends on your horse and how well muscled he is, and so on, that what he can work with. So again, as with everything else, these things are very individual, depending on the horse and what's the state of him, how much muscle he has, and how much training he has under his belt, and so on. But certainly you're best to start with a little bit too long side reins, and that they are quite low on the surcingle, than that they are too tight and they're too high. So it's better to err on the side of caution, so to say. And then it's good to ask advice if you're unsure. You can take a short video and so on, and just put it up and ask. And here you can see quite clearly as well that when he's bending through his body quite well here. See the inside side rein is loose, relatively loose compared to the outside side rein. So that means that he's bending, he's taking contact on the outside and bending his body along the circle. So as you can see, this is harder work, since I think these reins are just a tad shorter. So he's a little bit thinking of curling, but it's pretty good. It's very good, and he's starting to cope with it, and he's starting to work harder from behind, and kind of getting more on the bit there. And canter in between helps a lot with him, so we do that. And obviously he can canter really well nowadays over his back here, and even stretching into it, even with these shorter side reins. You can see that's pretty nice. So that loosens his muscles up and makes the trot afterwards a lot better. Like there you see, that's beautiful. It's a really nice working trot now. So that's great. So we've had this length of side reins, I think, ever since after this, and it's going really well. So that's nice. Yeah, so after this clip you will see some pole work that we did just the other day with side reins on, and I think it's the same length of side reins, so you can see the difference as well. He has gotten used to the tiny bit shorter reins, but still at the same level on a surcingle, so we haven't taken them up the surcingle yet. So once we take them up on the surcingle, we're gonna lengthen the side reins then a little bit again, so that he can maintain the good work and not start breaking over or curling. Or with him it's mostly curling, or that he pulls his neck in altogether. So indeed this day was a little bit harder for him, and you can see it, he's slightly behind the vertical every now and then, and you can see that he's really a little bit shortening his neck instead of as you saw earlier, he was really lovely pushing into the contact and lengthening the neck, instead of like here is a little bit harder. So here is some pole work with side reins as well, just from the other day. And as you can see, we actually started with ground poles, as we always do. We always start at least a couple times with just poles on the ground, and he went over them actually immaculately at first go. We just didn't capture it on the camera because it needed to obviously calibrate itself, so it took a bit longer. But here you see the start of me raising the poles. We first raised them just alternately to see how it goes, and the first try was not so good, but the third one there was really good. So I'm just raising the middle pole up as a cavaletti, and he really did a good job, very good job at that. But DJ thought like, okay, let's go another time still. Oh no, sorry, got that wrong. I was already thinking, I thought I remembered that we thought, okay, you don't need to do any more of it. It was so perfect. But he looked like there, and I thought he looked like there as if he was gonna come over them once more, but he didn't. Okay, so I put them down. This is how we started on the right hand, just poles down, and I just put them down for the left hand. And DJ's gonna just change the rein. So our the side reins are exactly the same length as they have been before on this video, and DJ is just clipping the line straight on the inside bit ring, and that works fine with the side reins when he's not tired or stiff. I've noticed that if he has a very stiff day, or if he's very tired, he starts to react with his mouth as per usual. He's a horse that shows his discomfort through his mouth. So when he feels extra stiff, he starts to play with his tongue. And yeah, so if the if he's feeling stiff and we put the side reins on, he quite often really start pushing his tongue out. And then we just know to take it a bit easier that day if that happens, and put the lunge line over the pole those days, because that will keep the bit more centered in his mouth, and it won't annoy him as much as it does when it's just attached to the inside bit ring. And when he starts mouthing, the bit very easily shifts through his mouth, and he can even have the outside bit ring in his mouth. He's that much of a mouther if he really puts his mind into it. So here DJ just took a little bit of walk work and then trot, and then just some canter to loosen him up more. As many of you know by now, his worst side is the left side. But this canter looks pretty okay. He's starting to find it a little bit tougher. I mean, because of the surface of the school is as you can see, it's starting to dust, so it's getting a lot very dry, and at the same time it starts to compact and become hard. So he is starting to react to the hard surfaces. We have noticed just lately that it's you start to see it in his going. He starts to look a little bit uneven at times when he feels the concussion more. Yeah, so this is how we started on the other side as well. The camera just missed us starting. Just go over the poles as they are on the ground, and observe that he's doing it well, like there. That was basically already good enough. And he's stretching on the other part of the circle, and DJ decided to still go once over, and that looked really good. I think I might be putting them up now. Let's see what I do. Yep, that's it. We put them up one side, so that it becomes a little bit more difficult for him. He needs to lift his legs a bit more. So yeah, the hard surface is starting to show on his going. He's especially on the left lane, he at times looks as if he's slightly uneven, but it is his reaction to the surface, because it disappears immediately when it rains and ground becomes soft, and he is immediately a different horse. So we have to take it a bit easier when it's this dry and the surfaces are not very good. So he's finding it, obviously, as you see, is a little bit more difficult on this hand, but that was very nice. That was very nice. His going didn't change, and he's really stretching into it. So I am putting up the mid pole again. This time I leave so I put the same one up, and I leave the first pole down for him. So you notice it slightly, the slight unevenness looking strides just as he goes in the corner, approaching the poles. So to say, here he seems to take sometimes a bit of an odd step. And yeah, the camera is following DJ, so we lose Pöly at times. So I think we need to attach the camera tag on Pöly next time, so we can see him all the time. But that's why it's missing. So that's what we thought. That was good enough from him that day. I'm starting to take off the poles there. So that was good work. We haven't done pole work that often lately. So it was great to see that he has, he finds it quite easy. Sometimes the approach he does especially on the left side, he gets the first stride, so to say, wrong, and then then he finds it really tricky and he loses his top line. So that's his difficulty. He somehow finds it harder to estimate the distance on the left. On the right it is always easier. So maybe it's all connected to the fact that he finds the work anyway tougher on the left hand. But he's working really great and he's stretching, and yeah, it's we really think that the side rein work is very useful at the moment. He really has learned to keep himself straighter, so instead of falling through the shoulder or jackknifing with the neck only, he's now keeping him straighter. But I also noticed the other day when I was lunging him, when he was getting particularly tired. Actually that day he was tired, and I did notice that he started to twist his head a little bit outwards. So I kept that session very easy for him, just doing very basic work and keeping the circles large and just letting him kind of sort himself out a little bit there by himself. So I didn't push him very much, just ask him to just move on a little bit. Okay, and here's work just from the other day, from 4th of July, as Will saw our seat video that was posted some days ago, and he suggested that we could now lift up the side reins up on the surcingle, and to ask him to work on more of a working frame and see how that goes. So here's our try from just yesterday, as I'm speaking today, on 5th of July. So it's that day he wasn't terribly energetic, but he wasn't as tired as he was the previous day. So it was a little bit better energy-wise. So we thought like, okay, let's put them up. Before this clip, DJ had been lunging without the side reins to just kind of warm him up and see if he was able at all to work in this higher frame or not. And we decided like, okay, let's try. So here we are on the easier side for him, and we just popped them up quite high on the rings, not at the absolute top, but the second from the top, so to say. The length of the side reins is the same as we had it lower on. We were thinking like, oh, should we make them longer or not? But we decided like, oh, let's just try and see. So here's us trying and seeing how he feels with this length as it is up. He is struggling, as you can see. He's a little bit like, oh, it's hard work. But he's actually, I was impressed that he still tried very, very hard. And he's going around mostly using his body. I think he could use his core more. But as you can see, he's still stepping relatively well under, except when he's lifting his head a little bit too high when he loses everything. But like there we are, as he's coming back to walk there. But he's coping. I think we could see what happens if we make them slightly longer, if he would stretch his neck a little bit more forward, but I think this is just really hard work for him still. And he can still stretch down to his knees about with his length, so it's not that bad length, but I'm wondering if they are just a tad too short, because you can see the belly isn't terribly engaged with this work, so yeah. A little bit on the fence with this. Okay, you can see the other side then as he's changing reins, and you can see that it's a lot more difficult on the left, and we ended up actually lengthening the side reins one hole in the middle. We just had a look like, okay, is it possible? Is he going to come out of the slight? Well, it's not necessarily curling, but we could see that his underneck gets a bit wrinkly, so to say, and then we know that he's getting slightly annoyed and he's finding it a little bit too tough. But we still see if we saw that if just pushing him into it, as you could see on the other hand, DJ was really asking Pöly to move on from behind, so that he will really get that energy going from the hind leg to all the way to the bit and really come up properly. So we're doing the same. He's doing the same thing here on the left rein, but as you can see, he's a little bit too high with the head. It's a little bit too difficult still. And here, actually, there I just put my film to the pause, and we made the side reins one hole longer, and we decided by the looks of it that it didn't really matter if they were one hole longer, because he was still having that kind of almost curling, but not quite, but you can see that the under neck is a little bit well, we could see, I don't know if you can see from the video here, but we could see that he was a little bit yeah, he wasn't really necessarily able to use his whole body in a perfect way, so to say. How would you put it? It's pretty good. As you can see, he can stretch still, but if he stretches lower than the knees, he will start curling. And but that's the whole point in this bringing them upwards, is that they will start to work more on the working frame and not the stretch as such. But they still should be able to reach forward and yeah, not curl or break in the neck or go behind a bit, so to say. And here you can see that he's starting there was some steps that looked a little bit uneven, and as I said earlier, this is really the ground is starting to be too hard on the school, and you notice it first at this tiny bit unevenness in the going, and especially on the left rein. They have promised us rain on Saturday, so on Sunday I'm gonna ride. Hopefully we'll get a nice movement and energetic horse then. But as you can see from this clip that he's really struggling. DJ is asking him to move on, as on the other side, but he's lifting his head a little bit too high at times, and like there he's just going on the chest height, and that's a little bit too high. Yeah, somewhere there is okay, but yeah, maybe we should try it still a hole longer and see if he will go more forward with his head still, or is that too long? Yeah, this is the difficulty of using side reins. What length, and you just need to try out some things and see if it is. The horse should be able to reach into the bit with the side reins, that's the point. but it shouldn't restrict the horse too much so that it will go behind the bit or it will curl up or pull its neck in or anything like that. And then it shouldn't be too long so that they are just flappy and will do nothing, basically. So yeah, it's not the easiest thing to work with, the side reins. And then again, you have to know when to push it. You have to know when your horse can take a certain length of side rein. Like with, for example, with Pöly, he would never have been able to do this type of work a year ago. That would have been impossible. He would have just curled up, and no, it would not have worked. So in the end here, you see that DJ's gonna give him just a couple of rounds in trot without the side reins. And you can see how happy he is with the fact that he can really push his nose out and really stretch his whole neck like that. So that's good to see. Although this is not obviously the best work, but it's nice to give him a little bit of freedom to really stretch his whole neck out without any kind of restriction there. Okay, I hope this quite lengthy video about side rein work with Pöly has been informative, and yeah, until next time, bye.